Thanks, George. As George mentioned, I'm Sheila Squire. I'm the current chair of the Women's Fund Advisory Committee. And before we turn it over to to hear from our panelists, I'd just like to tell you a little bit more about the fund. So as George mentioned, the Community Foundation's Women's Fund is a field of interest fund, and it was created to improve through purposeful philanthropy, the status and quality of life for all women. The fund has four objectives, and those are to promote educational, economic, social, and political equality for women, to enable women to achieve economic self-sufficiency, to ensure that women have the necessary resources for healthcare, and also to honor local women who have made our community a better place in which to live. If you'd like to know more about the Community Foundation or the Women's Fund, you can use the Zoom chat feature to chat with me directly. And just by giving me your name and email, I'll be happy to follow up with you and give you any additional information. And with that, I'll turn it over to Stacy Murphy, the Secretary of the Women's Fund Advisory Committee, to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you all for being here today and joining us. We know you want to get right to the discussion as its implications for protecting abortion rights and advancing the rights of everyone is important to you. So I'm going to briefly introduce the panelists, and we'll add links to the chat for fuller information about each of them and their organizations that you can read at your convenience. After I go through and introduce everyone, I'll start the panel off with our first question. And we'll do that we'll have panel time for probably about half an hour. But please feel free to add questions to the chat because we've saved time for Q&A as well at the end of that. Okay, so first, let me introduce Nia Alvarez-Mapp. She is the organizing director of New Yorkers for Equal Rights. New Yorkers for Equal Rights is a coalition of civil rights and reproductive rights organizations advocating for passage of the Equal Rights Amendment and is a ballot initiative committee registered with the Board of Elections in New York State. Nia previously worked with Common Cause as their Rank the Vote organizer, developing strategies and educating about ranked choice voting. Nia's primary research focus lies in political theology and its impact on voting influenced by religious contexts. Next, we are so thrilled to have the Honorable Carolyn B. Maloney with us. She is a former member of Congress and co-sponsor of the federal ERA ratification bill. She's current president of New York State now, also the National Organization for Women. She served for over 3 decades as a member of New York's congressional delegation in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1993 to 2023. During that time, she became a nationally recognized leader in many fields, including financial services, economics, and women's rights. Congresswoman Maloney was the first woman to chair the powerful House Committee on Oversight and Reform, and she was the first woman to chair the Joint Economic Committee. She authorized and passed more than 81 measures, and 14 of which were signed into law. In Virginia, after it became the 38th state to ratify the ERA in 2020, Maloney and Jackie Speer introduced a resolution to recognize that the ERA had met all legal requirements to be considered the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. In 2022, Maloney sent U.S. Archivist David Ferriero a letter urging him to fulfill his statutory duty and publish the ERA. It didn't happen yet. She continues this critical work in her roles as chair of the ERA Coalition and president of the New York State chapter of the National Organization for Women. And she is helping tutor the next generation of leaders in women's rights as the Eleanor Roosevelt Distinguished Chair in Residence at the Roosevelt House Public Policy Institute at Hunter College. Next, let me introduce Janet Schwenke. She is the first vice president of the Central New York Now, which is our local chapter of Now. She's a lifelong activist for people's rights. She's also a member of End Abortion Stigma, which is based in Ithaca, and she's a supporter of reproductive justice and dignity for all. She does lots of advocacy around these issues. Now is a multi-issue, multi-strategy organization, if you don't know about them, that takes a holistic approach to women's rights. Their agenda priorities include the ERA, championing abortion rights, reproductive freedom, and other health issues, opposing racism, fighting bigotry against the LGBTQIA community, and ending violence against women. And finally, it is my pleasure to introduce Blaine Yeshigita, co-founder and executive director of the Young Feminist Party, formerly Generation Ratify, which is a movement of more than 13,000 young feminists from across the country working to finalize the ERA and advance gender justice. She first began her ERA advocacy in her sophomore year of high school by organizing young people across Virginia to get out the vote and flip the state legislature, which ultimately made Virginia the 38th state and final state necessary to ratify the ERA. She now also works as a research assistant at Columbia Law School's ERA project and studies history and political science as a Kluge Scholar at Columbia University. So, welcome to all these fabulous, busy panelists, and I will start the questions now. So as we noted in all the advertising for this program, there are two sort of ERA tracks that are happening in this country right now. The federal ERA is likely the one that most people here are familiar with, but many of us don't really know where things stand with the federal ERA. And we're hoping that maybe you can give us a quick update. And I guess first I will ask Carolyn and Blaine for your takes on this.
I guess all I can say is when I went to Congress, I had a list of things I wanted to accomplish. I accomplished all of them. I authored and passed 80 bills signed into law, 14 signed by presidents, which is reserved for consequential important legislation. My biggest regret is that I did not get the Equal Rights Amendment over the finish line and protect women in the Constitution. As we saw with Dobbs, if they can take your right on reproductive rights, they can take your rights away anywhere. And they abolished, really, with the Dobbs decision, the right to privacy on which Ruth Bader Ginsburg and others built protections for women. So it's my goal that women, the only way we can protect women is to put them where they belong, where they can't get to us. And that is in the Constitution. And that is what the federal Constitution does. I spent 3/4 of my time, or at least 1/4 of my time in Congress, fighting to hold on to what we already had. They're constantly coming and trying to take it away. And that's why the state and the federal is so important. I have worked on this for 30 years. I can honestly say that we are closer now than we have ever been. We have the same resolution in the House and the Senate, and both of them have substantial support. In the Senate, it is sponsored by Cardin and Murkowski. It is bipartisan. 53 senators. We secured the first vote in 40 years. We did a parliamentary maneuver that will allow us to come back for a second vote because they invoked cloture requiring 60 votes for a filibuster. So we are now concentrating in the House of Representatives. The bill was introduced bipartisan by Ayanna Pressley. It has 209 co-sponsors. It is bipartisan. Brian Fitzpatrick is our Republican lead. Because the House is under Republican leadership and they oppose the Equal Rights Amendment, we have started a motion to discharge. We have 209 co-sponsors. We need 218. We believe we can get to them this Congress. We've waited 100 years, not 1 year more. So this is what we're working. We are supporting heavily also the Equal Rights Amendment on the state level that was passed by the senator, by the Senate and the Assembly twice, and it's now on the panel to vote for in 2024. Would you like more information on it? We've started 2 campaigns. This is very important to raise awareness to get this over the finish line. One is a petition called Sign Letter for ERA.org. And we have over 93,000 people have signed this petition. And it is broken down by congressional districts to help us reach out and talk to our elected representatives how important it is to pass it. We need to get millions on this signature. We have also started a shout campaign with Ogilvy. This is also in the chat so that you can see how to get that information and other information. If you go to the Sign for the ERA.org website, you can get a lot of information of where we stand on the federal ERA. The shout campaign is just to show how upset we are. I went to Ogilvy. I said, I want a crazy program like the Ice Bucket Brigade that got everybody's attention and spoke to the younger generation. And they came up with a shout campaign showing our frustration. The shout is then translated into a signature that goes to our petition drive. So it's new technology. It's a new way of reaching voters. And we hope you'll advertise it to your list, to your family, to get everybody to sign and to shout. And with that, I'll yield back to Belen to talk about the very, very important state ERA that we all have to get out and vote for.
Yeah, thank you. I won't get too much into the New York area because I know Nia is very well versed in that, but to kind of add on to the conversation about the federal Equal Rights Amendment, the legislation that was just discussed is HJ Res 25, yeah, 25 and the SJ Res 4, and these are the ERA Now resolutions, and they essentially affirm the Equal Rights Amendment and say that it is the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, and they urge the National Archivist to publish and certify the ERA into the federal constitution. This is really exciting because this is like a new type of bill regarding the Equal Rights Amendment. Previously, we've mostly had deadline elimination bills. So that's very exciting. There are also deadline elimination bills right now in Congress. So that's HJ Res 82 and SJ Res 39. I'm sorry, I got the number switched. No, I did not get the number switch. Yeah, HRS 82 and SJ 39, they affirm the ERA. No, I did get the number switch. SJRS 25 and SJRS 4, those removed the deadline. HRS 82 and 39, those affirm the Equal Rights Amendment. So there are two types of legislations regarding the Equal Rights Amendment in Congress right now. So there is like a two-pronged strategy. We're pushing for both at Young Feminist Party. So that is very exciting. And then the other thing we're really excited about is the ERA caucus, which is the first ever congressional caucus on the Equal Rights Amendment that was launched last February. It was about a month or so before the first Senate vote that was just discussed as well. And this is I think it's the 5th largest caucus in Congress, last checked. So it's very, very exciting. And it's spearheaded by Representative Presley and Representative Cori Bush, which are our closest allies, one of our closest allies, or two of our closest allies in Congress right now. So that is also very exciting. That's allowing for a lot of coalition building and cross-movement building in Congress and outside of Congress for the Equal Rights Amendment. On the note of state ERAs, I guess very briefly, Nevada just last election season, I believe, or maybe 2 seasons ago, passed their own very broad, very expansive, very incredible state level Equal Rights Amendment. And we were fortunate enough to be able to fly people down from our organization and get our local organizers to be involved in that ballot initiative. And we obviously are working on the ground in New York as well with the campaign. And these are really incredible for 2 reasons. One is, of course, if your state already does not have a state level Equal Rights Amendment in the meantime, until we get the federal one passed, it's really important to be able to secure one at the state level. These state level amendments also allow for much more expansive protections, because if we're writing them now and not in 1923, we can be more cognizant of all the different aspects that we want to capture and protect, which is what was exactly done in Nevada and what's happening here in New York. And then, of course, they also build pressure for the federal Equal Rights Amendment, which is another really non-negligible part of this. So we're showing our leaders in Congress and in the president's office that people really do want the ERAs. They want the federal ERA. They want state level ERAs. So that all kind of comes together. At YFP, we're also running this program where we have young people lead local ERA resolutions on their local or county or state level, in which they kind of like the ERA Now resolutions in Congress. They try to get resolutions passed in their communities where they say that we recognize the ERA as the 20th Amendment and we want it certified and published by the National Archivist. I don't know if this was discussed already, but essentially that is the biggest hurdle for the ERA. The ERA was ratified in 2020 when Virginia, my state, very exciting, ratified it in their state legislature. Now that the ERA has met the 2/3 Congress requirement and the 3/4 states, like it is ratified according to constitutional requirements. So what we were really wanting and what we need is for the National Archivist under the currently Biden administration to certify the ratifications of Nevada, Illinois, and Virginia, and to publish Equal Rights Amendment as a 20th Amendment. And that's what the ERA Now resolutions in Congress are doing. And then that's what the local ERA resolutions are asking for. So that's like kind of where all the moving pieces are heading towards right now. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, the ERA is truly like ratified. We just need that finalization process to be done and over with, and we can get to like legislating and developing this like jurisprudence to really put it into action.
Thank you so much. That's really great. And yeah, so as we shift over to the state level, the New York ERA is different in some important ways from the federal one. And can you tell us about that? And for that, I think I'm going to start with Nia and Janet for your takes on that.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for having me. And I can see a lot of friends of the campaign and coalition on this Zoom. So I just want to give a really quick shout out for them. And I'm just really excited to talk about the New York State ERA. Well, the one component of it is in regards to recognizing post-Dobbs. New York has a lot of statutory laws, so laws that are in protections of our abortion rights, but we don't have a strong legal framework that constitute it for us to ensure our protections are going to last for a very long time, at least in New York State's jurisdiction. And then also post-Dobbs, there was a really big conversation of like other components of discrimination that has not really been seen or protected in New York State. So what this amendment would do is explicitly prohibit discrimination based off a person's ethnicity, national origins, age, disability, including their sex, including their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy outcome, and reproductive health care and autonomy. So we're really expanding the conversation of reproductive rights in a more broader framework that is inclusive and reflects that those who live in New York State, to also bring it in a more national framework to both not only complement the federal ERA, but also to really make a lot of the United States as a whole to really understand the inclusion of what all those who have been missing in the past that have not fully felt, that have been impacted, but not have been felt excluded in the conversation when it came to reproductive health care and justice.
Okay, my turn. I am speaking to you as a representative or a member leader of National Organization for Women. I'm the ERA Task Force Director there. But what I'd really like to talk to you on the level of human to human, what does all this mean to me? I was a Navy wife for 22 years. We moved around all over the place, and I learned rather stringently that just because you have a right in one place doesn't mean you have a right in another place, because unless you are written explicitly into the Constitution, you are not necessarily protected. When my husband and I retired from the Washington, D.C. area, we moved to New York, at least in part because we thought, okay, New York is a haven. New York has protected us and given us all these rights that are being taken away in some other states. But the only classes that are explicitly protected in the New York State Constitution are race and religion. That was a big shocker for me. I figured, New York, we're safe forever. But we are safe for now with statutory laws, but statutory laws can be changed when government changes. They can vary from place to place by whether the local powers that be will enforce them. And that really got me thinking, because I am a mother of 4 daughters, a grandmother of 7 girls, and they potentially have fewer rights than I did. I'm an old war horse. I went through this the first time, And it really frosts me that my children and grandchildren are going to have to go through it all again. So what I want, what's in it for me, is getting these laws, these protections of our rights and freedoms enshrined in the federal constitution and in the state constitution. The federal Equal Rights Amendment is very broad. It's only 23 words. It doesn't go into a lot of detail. So New York State took it a step further, or several steps further, and spelled out particular classes of people and particular classes of government actions that we are shielded from. And there are so many. My operating principle, which came from my mother, was find the WIFM, but what's in it for me? And I think that so many of us in New York State stand to benefit from the New York State Equal Rights Amendment, not just women, but disabled, people who are discriminated against on the basis of age, people who are discriminated against on the basis of national origin or ethnicity, as well as just reproductive rights, which is very important to me, but I realize is not to everybody that we have to sell this to. So with a group of people from End Abortion Stigma and from Now, we started putting together a study group, over a year ago, trying to break down into different constituencies in the state of New York who would be positively affected by passage of the New York State Equal Rights Act, and try to build up coalitions and alliances with representatives of groups of these people and get an education out, because that's primarily anybody who knows what happens both with and without the Equal Rights Amendment in in the state of New York, I think can't help but support it. So that's where I'm coming from.
And to really uplift Janet's point, and which is why I wanted Janet to do more of the explanation for this, is that we want to show that this campaign is for people's power. You see, unlike the federal one where it has to be by state, we as New York citizens, New York residents, New York State is just, I feel like we're our own country sometimes. We, in November 5th, had the opportunity to flip the ballot and vote yes to add this into our Constitution. And what we wanted to reflect in our campaign is that this is not made by, of course, we thank our state capitals, Assembly members and senators, especially Liz Kruger and Assembly member Rebecca Seawright, who passed this twice consecutively in the state capitol. But really, the decision of this amendment will be in our hands. It is decided by, we are so blessed to have multiple people such as Now and the League of Women Voters and Indivisible and the Young Feminist Party who are a part of our coalition to build up this people power, to really get people motivated to come to the polls and add this and make the decision that we want to reflect that New York is protecting all New Yorkers, that we are preserving the rights and freedoms and protections to make sure all New Yorkers feel secure now and forever against any pervasive or injustice that may come of whoever is in office in New York State.
Thank you both. This was just really a great overview and very inspiring. One of the questions we had ahead of time from some of the people who signed up was, has anyone done any polling in New York State yet around the ballot's chances? Is there any sense of if it'll pass, or how close it might be? And sort of, if it does, what will we see?
I have polling on the federal ERA if you'd like it.
That'd be great too, yeah.
This was a poll that was commissioned by the feminist majority. It was done in 2023. I would think the polling would be better now, given the fact that they've tried to roll back our rights in other areas. This was done by Celinda Lake. She's a major pollster. She's one of President Biden's pollsters. And it showed massive support for the ERA. It was 75% overall for the ERA in our country. To give you perspective, in the 70s, when it passed the House and Senate, we were at 60%. We're now at 75%. When you poll Democrats, it goes to 85%. When you poll Republicans, it's roughly at 75%. And when you poll the ERA with reproductive rights or abortion rights, it polls third as the most important issue in the country, preceded only by the economy, inflation, and the economy, and protecting our democracy and our democratic rights. So it polls incredibly well. And one of the reasons that we did the petition is to show in a concrete way that support. A lot of times people hear polls and they don't believe them. But if you have the petition and the shout campaign, which is really a petition campaign, I met with the archivist several times, and this story is a great one. He told me that old days, they literally would stack up the petitions and roll them into the floor of Congress. So the statement, the weight of public opinion, they would weigh them right in front of Congress to show where people are. So that's where the weight for public opinion came from. So the support is there. We need to show that it is real in so many ways. And the only way our rights will be protected is to get women in the Constitution as men are. As Shirley Chisholm so famously said, the Constitution was written for white men only. And it's a great pity that African Americans and women were left out of the Constitution, but we have an opportunity now to change that with the federal ERA. And we have more support now than we have ever had in the 30 years that I've been in Congress.
I don't know much about polling for the New York State one. Nia may know more than I do because of her organization contacts, but I think with the New York State ERA, again, education is so vitally important because a lot of people don't really know about it. They confuse it with the federal ERA. They don't realize what's in it for other people besides just women. And that's what we need to do. We need to educate the populace what it is, what it can do for them. I think I heard somewhere that on first reading, without really going into the New York State ERA, between 70 and 80% of people say that they're inclined to support it, but they don't really know a whole lot about it. Nia can probably fill you in on that more than I can.
Yeah, so Janet, you're really much in the ballpark. Turns out our ballot measure is actually more popular in New York State than the presidential election. It's especially more popular for those with low voter turnout, most likely those who are going to be most likely not engaged this year, as well as young people and people of color when they first initially hear about it. But a part of the conversation that we have to really engage people based, and again, to hit and global strategy from our own campaign, they did this internal research. It's in our first phrase. We also recognize with such things such as the mifepristone case that might actually have some impacts. But at current time, we are pretty much the most popular question in the ballot. We also recognize that one of the things that really need to make sure people are engaged about is the urgency that for people to come out to the polls and flip the ballot and say yes. A lot of it is people either don't know that this is on the ballot measure or they confuse the New York State ERA for the federal ERA. So really our engagement within the campaign is to make sure people are aware that this is not only on the ballot and also making sure that this is going to impact New York State. But yeah, it's a very popular ballot measure currently, and most people believe in both our research and general strategies that this can really get, especially people who feel like their voice hasn't been heard by previous elections, to really come out and vote this year.
And I say just one more thing really quickly. When she says flip the ballot, the ballot initiative is on the back of the ballot, so people have to know to turn the ballot over. Sometimes in the past in New York State, we've paid the price because we never told people, oh, look on the back. So flip the ballot, turn it over, and vote yes.
Thank you for that. Wow, y'all are giving me a lot of hope today. So thank you. That information I'm pulling is pretty exciting. And since the conversation is sort of going in this direction, that we need to do more, I think my next question, Blaine, this one is, I think, mostly for you. We have some high school students, it turns out, that are attending today in a class that they're all together in a group from their school. And they had sent in the question, one of them had sent in, what are meaningful ways that middle and high school students can be part of this effort? And maybe after you answer that, the other panelists, the other ideas and other things that are out there, ways that people can engage, that would be good to know about too. But Blaine, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I love that. Well, just quickly to add on to the last question as well. In Nevada, the state ERA was the most popular thing on the ballot, more popular than any candidate, more popular than any other ballot question that season. So ERAs are very popular across the board. So very excited to see that's where New York is as well. Regarding young people and getting involved with the ERA movement, I think that's such a phenomenal question. I think when I was starting out, when I was 15 and I think a sophomore in high school, I was also wondering like, where is my space? Like, where is my role in this movement? And that can be a daunting question. And that's kind of what we've tried to answer with YFP, with Young Feminist Party, formerly Generation Ratify. I don't know if that rings more of a bell. But yeah, there are a lot of different ways to plug in, specifically when it comes to engaging with our organization. We are fully youth-led, fully youth-run organization, mostly high school and like early college age students. So you are like, this is like the space for you to get involved. I suppose this might also be sent out later in an email, but I did just kind of put together a few links that we have for people to get involved. But essentially, we would love for you to become a member of the Young Feminist Party. This essentially is just getting you on our email list, getting you in our Slack so you can get the constant updates from all of us. The other thing is kind of getting involved in organizing. Starting a chapter can be a bit of a commitment, but we do have all different ways to get involved. If looking to join events, sign forms, sign petitions, write to your Congress people, write to your state level representatives, write to Biden sometimes. We've got a big petition drive for Biden right now regarding abortion access. So all these different kind of ways you can get involved on an individual level or kind of on a group basis. Something that's really exciting to us, especially right now, is the local ERA resolution program, which I think briefly mentioned earlier. But you can pass a resolution in your community that affirms equal rights amendment as a 28th Amendment and urges archivists to certify and publish. This is happening on the state level in some places, like Minnesota is working on this right now. They're having, I believe, might have actually passed out of their legislature at this point, but they have an ERA affirming legislation in their state level legislature. Maryland, I believe, is also working on this as well. I think it actually just passed out of their Senate and so went to their House chamber. So this is something you can do at your local level, at your county level. And this is a really impactful way of showing that people on the ground in different places across the country are really passionate and definitely want the Equal Rights Movement. So that's a really exciting program we've got going on. So that's currently my favorite program. I would imagine that you're in New York, so that's really exciting. We have 2 convenings coming up on the 30th in line with the campaign's launch for the New York ERA. So if you're in the New York City area or the Buffalo area, you can attend those really easily, but we'll be connecting with people across the state once those convenings pass. So if you want to shoot me an email, I can plug you into our efforts in coordinating with the campaign. But lots of different ways to get involved. I would definitely urge you to just join our Slack, fill out the membership form, and we'll send all the opportunities your way. But yeah, I'll cede the floor.
Well, one, I'm gonna put in the chat the get involved because I want to uplift the Young Feminist Party because a part of the campaign recognizes community. You know how to talk to your community best. Peer-to-peer engagement is the most impactful and helpful way to make sure we vote yes for the ERA. But we also recognize intergenerational conversations are vital as well. I also want to shout out Caitlin Hunter from Planned Parenthood, who is a part of our BIC, and knowing that they also have youth engagement as well, as including folks like NAACP New York. And so one of the ways in which we invite everyone to be a part of this, regardless of age, regardless of if you're able to vote or not, is that we have a campaign coalition call where if people want to get updated, people who want to get in contact or connect with different partnerships, because we have close to 150 and counting coalition partners all across New York State, and they want to really be region-based or community-based, get into contact with us. I will be personally working with everyone who is a part of that contact list to make sure they're connected to the right people who they feel like they can best help for this campaign, to be involved and also be engaged, to know what's everything that's going on. Because again, a part of the campaign's model and mission is to make sure everyone feels like they're impacted, because this campaign is just as important for you as it is for me, and also this campaign is yours. It's just as much as it's mine.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that. I mean, basically, you're the generation, you being Blaine and the younger people, for whom this will be most important. I mean, I'm not really in the reproductive justice bubble anymore personally, but I want my daughters and my granddaughters to be aware. One thing, my daughters are busy with life, and are not as involved, but my granddaughters are. And every time I come across a shirt that is catchy and supports the ERA or something like that, I send it to one of my granddaughters who are in Virginia, Maryland, and New York, and they wear them, and it sparks conversations. And as I said, you're going to be tired of me saying education over and over, but that's what we really need. People need to know what we're about and what the ERA is about, and that's something anybody can do.
Thank you. Oh, and thank you, panelists, and also people in the chat have been chiming in with all kinds of other ways that you can get involved, and links where you can sign up for things. And I want to thank Sally Grubb is here. She's part of the League for Women Voters, and she put a lot of information in there too about voting and registering. You can register to vote as young as 16. I personally did not know that. So thank you all for those suggestions and those questions. I'll ask one more question, and then we'll open the floor up for your questions. What happens if it passes or if it doesn't pass? One question some folks have had is sort of, what are remedies for discrimination going to look like? Like, if it passes, then what? Are there implications to figure out? One person had wrote in ahead asking about employment for disabled workers and Social Security, for example, how the ERA might interact with that. What comes next after it passes?
Well, once it passes, for the first time, we'll be able to enforce equal pay for equal work. My entire life, we've always passed equal pay for equal work, but women can be discriminated against, and if it goes to the courts, we never win. So if it became the law of the land, simply put, we would be able to enforce equal pay for equal work. We would be able to protect women from sexual violence. If you remember the Violence Against Women Act, we added a right to sue. It was challenged under Brancala. She was raped in front of gang rape by football players her first night on campus. She appealed to the school, the state, goes to the federal government. They throw it out on a technicality. She's not in the Constitution. It's not a Commerce Clause violation. Rape is a crime. It should be enforced. It would do more to protect women, both financially. I would say the ERA is economic. It would protect them from social violence, from discrimination in all ways. Right now, we're not protected from discrimination. I can't think of anything more important to protect women. And as I said before, if they can take away reproductive rights, they can take away any other right. And they are talking about taking away access to contraception, mifepristone, and other hard-won fights that we've had. So the only way to protect women is to get where they can't reach us, and that's in the Constitution. Yield back.
Well, I could speak for the state. One, I am blessed that we are New Yorkers where we have this through statutory, so we are still currently protected. The reason why we're having this conversation now to add it into the New York State Constitution is that if someone is to come, we almost had a very pro-life candidate a few years ago against our current governor. And so currently, and I state this again, like if someone, I will say, who is very pro-life or very anti discrimination for all can easily overturn it with the statutories we have in hand. Most likely not to happen, but there's always that possibility out there. With the New York State equal rights, we are going to add it in the Constitution. So as I always say, people come and go, but constitutional policies are forever. So it's to be further protecting and having protections for the future. Now, if this does not pass, and we want to try this again, it will take another 2 years, and we will have to put it up for vote. If it does pass, we will now have these protections against those who are either under the government or are government funded, so non-for-profits that are asking for grants. And this can further the protections and complement already existing protections under statutory law in New York State.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other thoughts on this from the panelists? Okay. Okay, we can take some questions from the chat next. And looking for, let's see, one of our committee members, Shine Gonzalez, was going to be watching some of the questions. And have you seen any? Shine, have you seen any yet? I kind of got lost in a lot of the, there's been a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bruce entered in a really great question that I think we should touch on. Bruce says, could we talk about how to respond to potential attacks that don't have to do with women's equality, specifically parental rights and migrants?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So again, what makes this ballot measure so different from ballot measures that have been passed recently when we think about Ohio or Michigan is that most of these really focus on just protecting no bans of abortions. We in New York State, and I guess it's fitting because New York State is known for its history with women's rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, immigrant rights. We are creating a very first in its kind ballot measure that is to protect discrimination against those, as I said earlier, with LGBTQ, national origins and ethnicity, and as well as reproductive health care. So really not just thinking about abortion, but all components of reproductive health. So when we think about criminalization for those who have miscarriages, IVFs with embryosis, these protections are going to be added within New York State's Constitution. And the opportunity that we have for this is that when, and I'm not going to say if, because I know when this Constitution gets passed in New York State, we can now open this conversation to a more national framework for to encourage other states across New York to incorporate this into their own constitution. So really this, yes, we talk a lot about abortion because abortion is top of mind, but really gives us, this constitutional amendment gives us a golden opportunity to protect all New Yorkers. And when I mean all New Yorkers, I truly mean all New Yorkers who have felt left behind based off of discrimination in the past. And now we're uplifting them and putting them in the front to have these conversations that have been impacted. And I speak.
Well, I would like to add that when we had the ERA in the 70s, they attacked with all kinds of unrelated things. And I would say I would go back to the resolution itself. It's talking about the federal, it's roughly 23 words. This is exactly what it says. Equality of rights under the Constitution shall not be denied or abridged because of the United States or any other state, simply put. And then I would recite the state one and exactly what it covers and say that's what it does. It's not talking about parental rights. It's talking about these fundamental rights of equality. I would just try to revert back to the substance of the Equal Rights Amendment that is before us on the ballot, federally and state.
Yeah, I second that. Hi, Bruce. Bruce lives in the same area that I do, so I've probably heard some of the same things he's heard. And I think we just have to put the emphasis on what the amendment says. It says it protects rights and freedoms. Who can be against that? I've heard some of the wild things about, oh, this is going to allow, I heard somebody say that it makes it legal to prey on children sexually because of age discrimination. We think of age as older people and they're interpreting it as children. No, it doesn't say that. Common sense has to come into it somewhere, and it's going to be enforced by statutorily. It will be, these things will be enforced by the police department, and they will inevitably result in lawsuits, and all that will come into precedent. But I think it's almost a compliment when they have to reach that far to say we're making it legal to molest children, argue against us.
And I mean, and again, I'm really starting to understand the question Bruce asked. I would say it like this, right? People will combat this amendment for whatever reason that they can think of. Not for nothing, but there's just a lot of, I won't say evil, but very bad actors in everywhere. And what really the whole point that we really want to emphasize is, again, what Janet and Congresswoman Maloney's point was, we are here to work together. We are here to represent the unity of New York. We are here to represent the solidarity that we have to protect and preserve the rights and freedoms for all New Yorkers, to ensure that we are protected now and for future generations. And recognizing, again, that we have existing laws already that have these protections, what these laws, and there is nothing in these laws that make the rhetoric any more lesser. There's nothing in the laws that really is, the laws sort of already contradict the rhetoric. What this Constitution is doing is just complementing the already existing laws in New York State. But again, I wouldn't even engage with that. My campaign, I argue, would engage with that. We're really just, again, showing the solidarity and unity that we have for each other. That's like, why not can we protect all New Yorkers who live here? So that's where I would angle that more instead of going with the negative, combat with the positive.
Thank you. That feels very usable, because I know a lot of people, things get lost in a lot of heat and a lot of divisiveness. So that's very reasonable and logical and actionable. And thank you for that. Let's see, Shine, were there any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, Nancy had a great question as well. Why has the national ERA not been published as procedure?
I'm in a car and it went blank. Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Why has
the national ERA not what?
Been published as procedure?
It's gone blank. Okay. The archivist, the final step is to have the archivist recognize it as ratified. And I met with Ferrero, who was then the archivist. He was appointed by President Biden. He told me, not President Biden, Obama. And he told me that he supported the ERA. And if we got Virginia to ratify it in 20, so Virginia did such a great job and became the 38th state to ratify, immediately called him, and he came to my office and very sheepishly said that he had written President Trump and Barr at DOJ and asked them, what should he do? Well, that was the stupidest thing in the world. And President Trump and Barr wrote back with roughly a 30-page memo saying basically that the time limit had expired. And that's why they were not recognizing it. So he refused to recognize it. So when President Biden was elected along with other women organizations. We wrote the president and asked him to remove the memo and ratify it. And he spoke back to the country saying that he would recognize it. He said only Congress can really approve it. Congress legislates, the executive board interprets or rather enforces, and then the judicial interprets. And he said he would recognize it if we passed a sense of Congress, that it was ratified, that it had met all of the requirements of Article 5 of the Constitution, which it has. And that is what our petition does. That is what the legislation in both the House and the Senate does. We got constitutional lawyers and educators to come out and write letters saying that if Congress imposed a time limit, Congress can remove a time limit. And that is what our legislation does. It has passed the House twice. We have it now before the House with a sense of Congress. And the president said he would act then if we pass this sense of Congress, removing the deadline and recognizing it as having met all of the criteria. He could ask the archivist to recognize it now if he so wished, but he has not, and he has made this requirement, and I am trying to respond to it with many women leaders across the country.
Carolyn, thank you for that. And everyone, I just want you to know, Carolyn is on her way now. She's got to speak at a press conference in about 5 minutes downtown, and she's like still been hanging with us this whole time.
Oh, listen, this is so
on her
important.
way there. Thank you.
It's so important. Upstate New York is so important for the state ERA and the national ERA. We only need 3 Republicans. We should be able to get them from New York State alone with our motion to discharge. So what you're doing today is incredibly important for the effort, and I want to support you any way I possibly can. We just got Swazi to sign on. He was newly elected in an open race, and there are 3 other open races. And if we can pick up those 3 seats, then we'd have really the votes to move the resolution to the floor for a vote.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. And thank you for the really good comments and ideas in the chat too. Yep, Sally just said, hey, we should all write to Mark Molinaro.
Absolutely. Sign the petition. Go to sign4era.org and we can work together. And the more people who sign the petition will be able to communicate with you on what he is saying and doing. And hopefully you will meet with him, you will write with him, and he will see the importance of being a co-sponsor to the legislation and the motion to discharge. We need bipartisan support. We have it, but we need more.
So we all have a lot of work to do. And thank you for that. We're almost to time, but before I turn it to George to take us out, panelists, does anyone else have any final comments you'd like to share before we end our hour?
I just want to thank you all again so much for having New Yorkers Equal Rights to come talk to you all about the New York State Equal Rights Amendment. I'm also really happy to see a lot of, again, as I said earlier, friends of the coalition who are here, who have been with us since the very beginning. And, you know, again, making sure you tell, and for all the younger people to the older folks, tell everyone about this, even if you feel like they are not eligible to vote, because most likely they know someone that will, and making sure to remind people that on November 5th this year to go to your polls, flip over the ballot, and vote yes to the ERA.
I'd like to join my voice in thanking all of the panelists, particularly the young people. We need young people to lead us on this, and also to Central Now and to Tompkins Community Organization. I met many of you in Seneca Falls this past summer when we celebrated 100 years of the introduction of the Equal Rights Amendment. 100 years, not 1 year more. This is the year to pass the state ERA and the national ERA. And you're a big part of making that happen. Thank you so much for your leadership. Yield back.
I guess I'll go ahead as well. Really thankful to be on this panel with all these incredible leaders and speakers, and Stacy especially. Thank you for coordinating all of this. It's been a pleasure to work with you. To the young people on here, I definitely encourage you all to get involved with the Young Feminist Party. We definitely want to have you and coalition build in New York State, especially as we approach November. So I look forward to connecting with all of you. And if you're not in the high school, middle school demographic, I still want to connect with you. A lot of important intergenerational work, cross movement work that can be done for the Equal Rights Amendment, and I want to do it with all of you. So thank you so much.
And unmute. Same thing everybody else said. I want to say a big thank you to the Community Foundation of Tompkins County and to Stacy in particular. Stacy, I know, is a fantastic person who can do 197 different things at once and do them all well. And I am grateful to her, to all of my fellow panelists, and to all of you who came today to give us a forum. Pass it on.
Hey, George, you want to take us out?
Yes, I want to add my thanks to everyone here too, and Stacy and the great group of the Women's Fund Advisory Committee. You know, we at the Community Foundation think of philanthropy, especially community-based philanthropy, as the voluntary, if not obligatory, contribution of 7 resources, all with which begin with the letter T, to improve our quality of life for everyone. What are they? Talent, testimony, trust, ties. I forgot one now. It's time, talent, treasure, testimony, ties, trust, and I've added a 7th, which I've never added before. Here's a brand new 7th one, and it's emboldened by what we're doing. Temerity, courage, boldness, doing what's right, even when people are aligned against you. So thank you for being involved in all this. We need everyone connected here to make this all better for everyone. Use your temerity today. And we'll get you the recording and the information in the chat to everyone that's attended. Thank you all.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Go do good stuff. Get in good trouble.